probably one of my favorite. I like doing just ranking stuff.
Yeah.
I like debating, but I also like ranking stuff.
Yeah,
Because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, these two segments back to back are kind of our two favorites, and that's why we put them where we put them in the show.
Yeah, that's why we like doing this.
Mhm.
I Wrestle Take podcast. There you go. So our ranking segment last week we had another fun one. We had the top 10 NBA performers from the bubble.
Mhm.
We went in good detail with that.
Yep.
Now we're going to the potential. We're going to stick with NBA routines. Potential NBA offseason moves that we personally would like to see.
Mhm.
So we listed 10. Do you want to go?
We went 10-10 last week, 9-9. You want to
Keep
go
doing
same
that?
sort
Yeah,
of?
I like that.
Okay.
I'll start. You start last, then I'll start.
Okay.
Number 10, this was not really a big thing. It was kind of a low-key thing because I like this guy. But I want to see Jeremy Grant for the Nuggets get re-signed. I think he had a great bubble. I think he's a good player for the Nuggets, good role player for them. And he was another guy I liked watching, and I think he's a guy that deserves to be paid.
See, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. You wouldn't say Michael Porter Jr. is better than Jeremy Grant?
No, 100%. I think Michael Jordan's that third star, but I think Jeremy Grant would be a good, maybe like they go small and play with the four. I'm all for Michael Porter Jr. I think he's going to be a star if he maybe gets a little better on the defensive end, but in terms of scoring, he's...
Yeah, because they got the same length, the same height, same sort of presence on the floor.
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant's a little more bouncy. Michael Porter's a little more finesse.
Right. I think like the Nuggets, like maybe a lineup they could have next year. I don't know what Will Barton's going to do because he didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
But like Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Michael Porter Jr., and if they want to, I mean, Jeremy Grant and then Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows Bol.
Yeah. They could go that route
Right.
because they have Michael Porter and Bol. So they could go a different route if they really wanted to, but Jeremy Grant definitely deserves
He deserves to. He was great.
To get a good contract and a good role in a team because he was key for them.
He was honestly, Paul Millsap was good for them, Michael Porter Jr. was good for them.
I forgot about Paul Millsap.
Right, but because he's the four guy. So
yeah, and they paid him the max a couple years ago, so they can't get rid of him.
But Jeremy Grant, a couple times, he was like the third best player for a majority of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a fan of him, so I would like to see him get paid.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a kind of a small thing.
So at my number 10 spot, I got the Heat finding their missing piece. Whether it's through DeMar DeRozan and his free agency, Gordon Hayward and his free agency, or via trade. They're missing that one, prevalent small forward presence that's the one thing kind of missing from their team. They have Duncan Robinson, but I don't really think that I think they want to use him as more of a role player.
I think he's a good six man, just come in and light it up.
Right. Yeah, he's going to play more of a role player role where they need the volume shooting, but you got to have that good forward presence, and that's the one thing that they're kind of missing. Jay Crowder and Andre Iguodala were okay, but there are better options out there. So I think if you require them via trade, because you have trade assets as well that they can use to your advantage, and I think they can put something together, and they definitely have all the cards and all the pieces in play to get that forward.
I think you just mentioned Gordon Hayward. I think he needs a change of scenery. I feel bad for him because he was coming to the Celtics, such a good player. He got hurt. But I'll be a fan of him coming to the Heat.
Yeah. They
move out Jay Crowder, I think, and they go small with Gordon Hayward at the four.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have to pay Gordon Hayward as much either, so you could still make a run at Giannis next year if you really wanted to.
Definitely. I would like to see that. And there's a couple. I saw another thing. I don't have this on the list, but I saw Danilo Gallinari. They could sign him. But I don't know how I feel about that because he's just another kind of scorer.
He's getting up there in age,
yeah.
Isn't he like 34, 35?
He's probably, might even be older.
And he has a handful of injuries in his resume right
That was just something I saw, but I would rather be like a Gordon Hayward or, who else are you saying that?
DeMar DeRozan.
I'm a fan of DeMar DeRozan, but again,
You're going to have to pay him the max,
exactly.
And then at that point, you might have to pay, or they might not be able to make a run of Giannis.
Yeah, and he's more of a ball, he needs the ball.
Ball dominant, yeah.
Like Gordon Hayward is good off the ball, and obviously you're going to have, with the Heat, of Jimmy Butler, and Tyler Hero, and then who knows what Gordon Dragic is going to do. And Kendrick Nunn, we didn't talk about him.
Yep.
I'm actually going to stay with Heat. As a Heat fan, I want to see Goran Dragic re-sign with the Heat. I don't think he'll be a starter, but I want him to be like a role player. I think we've talked about this before, I felt so bad for him. He had a great playoff. Leading scorer for the Heat, and obviously the injury was a killer for him. But I want to see him resign, get a good contract, and be another role player for the Heat. He's another one guy that's getting older with his age, and I think he'll appreciate, or he knows that kind of his time is going down, and Tyler Hero's kind of either going to take that spot of him, or Kendrick Nunn's going to keep that. But I want to see him keep him as a role player for the Heat, because the Heat are going to continue to be good, make the playoffs, and you need a guy like that to come off the bench and just light it up.
Yeah, his playoff performances is definitely going to help his case a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think the finals, he kind of got the short end of the stick though with the injury that he received. I think that could have really sealed the deal as far as the Heat re-signing him if he had a good finals. But who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of let him go because Tyler Hero
Yeah,
and
Tyler
Kendrick Nunn.
and Kendrick Nunn,
They're
two young
future of the
guards
guard, yeah.
and two All-NBA rookie teams.
And you still have Jimmy Butler who was playing point guard with Goran Dragic out almost. But as a Heat fan, I want to see him get paid as like a 6 or 7 man.
At my number 9 spot, I got the Celtics signing Andre Drummond.
Celtics?
Celtics.
So I have a Celtics signing as well, but not Drummond.
Andre Drummond is a free agent this year. You kind of saw him decline in Cleveland. He kind of had a smaller role because they were trying to develop other young guys out there. But that's the one thing that the Celtics are missing is a center presence on their just their team really. Because Daniel Tice didn't really play a lot.
I think we talk about he's a good backup.
He's a good role player. He's a good backup player. You have Enes Kanter there who doesn't really do anything but run his mouth.
Yeah, but he gets offensive rebounds. Who's a good to give him like 8 minutes and he'll bruise.
Yeah, but Andre Drummond, former All-Star, former league leader in rebounds for like 3 or 4 consecutive years.
Yeah.
So I think that they just need a big man. They are in desperate need for a big man. I don't think they have the roster or the current people on their roster are not going to fill that role the way they're wanting it to. I think Andre Drummond will mold and fit right in with that Celtics team.
So I have another one like that, but that's later on my list. So for my 8, this is kind of a cool thing that I would like to see. Drew Holiday gets traded to the Pacers and plays with his 2 other brothers. I just think that would be a great storyline because you got the Pacers, you got Justin, you got Aaron, who are 2 good NBA players. Drew's been good, but I think I don't know what he's going to do with the Pelicans and what their roster's going to look like. I've always been a fan of Drew Holiday. And that's just something we talked about, something offseason moves that we'd like to see, and that would be crazy to have 3 brothers on one team.
Yeah, definitely. The Pacers, I think, are going to play. I'll get to the Pacers in a little bit because I have a Pacers trade of their own.
Okay.
Coming, and it's not anybody that they currently have on their team.
They're going to see it. Okay.
Yes. So I think the Pacers are going to play a big role in this year's offseason as far as grabbing the coach that they need and the one piece that really completes that puzzle.
Because they're good. Tobias Sabonis is an all-star. T.J. Warren showed out of the bubble, and Malcolm Brogdon's a good guard. Who knows what they're going to do to Oladipo? But they're a good team.
Yeah, they got a good roster to be good for the next couple of years.
Exactly.
At my number 8 spot, I have I alluded to this a little bit in the first episode that we had, but Philly finds a way to swoop in and pick Anthony Edwards in the draft this year. I talked about that.
Was it the first episode?
Yep, that was the first episode. We talked about it. Like I said in that episode, you have all the trade assets to do so. You could give them the picks, Josh Richardson, Fergie Korkmaz, and whoever else you need to add a part of that deal. If you need to get rid of Tobias Harris, get rid of Tobias Harris because I think Anthony Edwards has way more upside.
100%.
And that's the one kind of complementary piece where he can score on or off the ball. Where you see with Ben Simmons, you have Joel Embiid, they kind of need the ball to be relevant in the game, but you kind of have that active guard on the defensive and offensive end that can shoot the 3 and play a good interior defense. So I think that's gonna not complete their team, but it's gonna fill a big gap that they have that they're seeing right now.
No, they need someone like that. I have another kind of comparison like that, but I think that would be a big move. You think that would be like on a draft day move or a couple days before?
I think that's either a draft day move because they can't make it known where they're drafting because first of all we don't know who's gonna go at number 1 because we don't have a definitive number 1 pick yet. Yeah. But I think if you see him fall below the top 2, Philadelphia might swoop in. Yeah. You gotta be on the lookout for that.
For my number 7, Chris Paul is going to either be traded or he's leaving the Thunder. I think the Thunder, even though they had a great year this year, I think they're going to kind of see that they don't really have a future in the West with the team they have now. They're just a good, solid team. I don't think they're going to be able to get over the hump. So I think they're going to they're going to trade Chris Paul either. I was trying to look up some stuff. They could go to like the Knicks. That'd be pretty funny to see.
That would kind of dictate who they draft too.
Yeah. Because that'll be an interesting thing.
Because they're trying to get Melo. I know they have kind of a lower pick than they thought they were going to have, but
Yeah.
that
Or
might dictate it.
something that I would like to see though is him with the Bucks,
I didn't even think
right?
Yeah.
Because and that's talking like if Giannis stays, because that would be nice.
See, the thing is with that though, I think you don't get CP3 without the Bucks giving up Chris Middleton.
Very good point.
So that, like, I don't think they're gonna take Eric Bledsoe and a bunch of bench players for CP3 after just making the playoffs.
And the Bucks are not gonna have a lot of draft picks.
Yeah, so that kind of, I would like to see that, and that would definitely benefit the Bucks and their chances to re-sign Giannis immensely. But it's just a matter of how willing they are to keep Chris Middleton and the rest of their supporting cast.
Right. If the Bucks have, I didn't think of that either. But if they could somehow work a deal with keeping Middleton and Giannis, Chris Paul would be a great fit for them.
Definitely.
It would be definitely an improvement from Eric Bledsoe.
At my number 7 spot, I'm staying kind of with the draft trend that I had from the last pick. I got the Warriors drafting James Wiseman. James Wiseman is kind of going to fill that role if there were one missing piece, because they're another team that hasn't, like, they had Andrew Bogut, they had Festus Ezeli for the past couple of years, but they haven't really been premium big guys. You have the number 1 pick. With the rest of the team, you could potentially have the starting lineup of the Warriors be next year: Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and James Wiseman. That
Literally my next point.
is it really?
Literally, I wrote the same exact thing.
Oh my God!
Potential starting lineup: Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, Wiseman. First of all, that's a great lineup.
That's a great lineup.
Because Wiseman just catch throwing alley-oops, rebound.
That's going to complement them so well because Draymond looks to more facilitate more than score.
Yep.
You have Wiggins playing off the ball. That is always going to be like driving and kicking.
Yeah.
And so I think that lineup is so scary. Their depth is kind of sus still, but that starting lineup is going to be a force.
Yeah. So that was my number 6. Warriors take James Wiseman with the 2nd pick and have that starting lineup. I'm curious to see what they do with Wiggins though, because they talked about potential deals with him. I don't know what they'll do, but I think, because I do not want to see LaMelo Ball get drafted to the Warriors. I think that would be pointless because they already have Curry and Clay.
And Jordan Poole.
Yeah, who's been solid. But if they get Wiseman, like you said, that's starting 5, they're going to be back to, even if they don't get him, but if they do, they're going to be a force. I think Stephen A. said that the team that stands in the way of the Lakers next year is the Warriors. And that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, their depth is still kind of sus, and I think they're still like the Clippers, that they have all the same guys, and they could move Paul George to get a better piece, which I'm going to get to in a second. Just wait on that one. But, and they have Ty Lue, who's going to implement a new championship system.
Yep.
And I think they have to go through that, and I think they have to go through the Nuggets before we really get to the Warriors.
Yep.
If they had even close to the depth that they had throughout even last year before they gave up Kevin Durant and like really before going into this year, if they have any depth close to that, I would 100% agree. But
I still think the Nuggets. I even think I'm a big Mavericks fan, but I don't know.
The Mavericks have to make a move to really do anything.
I'm curious, but I think like the Warriors are better than the Jazz. They're gonna be better than the Trailblazers. But I think, like you just said, I think the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, those are the top 3 teams. I'd say the Warriors at 4.
So at my number 6 slot, I'm going to go back to DeMar DeRozan point because the Heat is kind of a reach for him.
Yep.
I would like to see either LA team sign him or Philly.
See, Philly, I have a problem with that because he's not a shooter though.
That kind of adds, but they have a guy that
can
handle it.
Right now.
Yeah, he can handle the ball. You can have Ben Simmons cutting off the ball a little bit. He's a better shooter than you have with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid with your other stars.
Yeah.
So I think that would complement them all right, and then you can add a shooter in the draft at some point. So that's really their one, like, that they have to fill that spot in some way, shape, or form. They have to fill that void that Jimmy Butler left. So if they sign like a low-key shooter like a JJ Redick that they had a couple of years ago and then add DeRozan, I think they're right back where they were. But I think that would be a good move from them. But as far as the 2 LA teams go, you don't really have like a premium guard on the Lakers, and you have a multitude of people that they have to re-sign. They have 11 free agents or 11 players that either have a player option or are up for contract this year.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
With that being said, you might have a little bit of cap space to work with. I mean, obviously you have to re-sign AD and LeBron, and that's going to take up a good portion of it. But if you have enough, and DeMar DeRozan is willing to go win, which I'm sure he's dying for now, with
he's another guy I feel bad for.
Yeah, seeing the Raptors win the year that he gets traded, I'm sure he's dying to get one. So I think those two teams kind of present that sort of win-now option.
I'm glad you brought that up because just from you talking about that, what if you went to the Mavericks? That would be
would work.
Nice third piece, right?
Yeah, the Mavericks kind of got lost in my list because I was thinking about teams that were just in contention, and the Mavericks got knocked in the first round.
I don't have any Mavericks either, but you made me think about that. Like that would be, I think Luka, DeMar, and Porzingis. That's a nice big three right there.
Definitely.
I think DeMar would love that.
Mm-hmm.
For my number 5, you mentioned Andre Drummond. I'm going to go with another Cavalier. I'm going to say Kevin Love's going to sign with the Celtics.
Ooh.
So
I forgot about Kevin Love.
Right?
Is he up for free agency this year, or is he just looking to be
I think maybe that'll be a trade.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure, but I want that because Drummond's more. I think they need another like just another shooter. I'd say. I don't know. Like he would be tough. Like Drummond's a better matchup against Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
But Kevin Love, I think he's a scrapper.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be nice. I'd like to see that Kevin Love there.
Yeah, that would. I definitely think that would. He's not the rebounder he wants.
No, not at all.
But I mean,
but he's still a good caliber starting.
Good guy to spread the floor.
Yeah.
3-and-D guy.
Exactly.
Good perimeter shooter.
He's got lost, but he's still. Even when he's healthy, he was good for the Cavs this year.
Yeah. That would be definitely a move that I could get on board with.
Yeah. So and Andre Drummond, or I think the Celtics. You said it too. I believe it as well. They need a big guy, and Drummond either at center or Kevin Love power forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to see that.
At my number 5 spot, we kind of talked about this earlier during the coaching carousel. I would like to see Mark Jackson get a job before Jeff Van Gundy would again. I think Jeff Van Gundy's too far removed from the NBA. I think his last coaching gig was 2008 Knicks.
Okay.
Something like that. It was definitely the Knicks. It was when he got kicked in the face by Mark's Camby or whatever the hell happened. That was like one of his, or that was one of his, if not the last year that we've seen Jeff Van Gundy as a coach. He's kind of been circulating through the USA basketball system,
Right.
but he's never really had like the NBA team to control yet. Mark Jackson is a couple years removed from developing a Warriors championship team.
You put that into fruition almost.
Yeah, and he was a great coach, and I'm so surprised it's taken this 5 years for him to get another coaching job.
Still don't even know why he left the freaking Warriors.
Yeah, that move confuses me to this day. But Mark Jackson is like one of the best like NBA. Like he kind of reminds me of David Ross, where everyone loves him, everybody loves listening to him, and he is definitely he can be a coaching presence if you ask him to be. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of teams out that have coaching vacancies right now, or are going to have coaching vacancies that kind of suit Mark Jackson. Mm-hmm. So that I would like to see that, and especially before Jeff Van Gundy. I don't want to see them both go because then Mike Breen will be in that building. Exactly. But if Mike Breen wants to give me a job, I'm here for it. I'm down.
For my number 4, you mentioned the Sixers. I'm going to say Buddy Hield signs with the 76ers. So he averaged 19 a game last year. He was 3rd in 3-pointers made. And he came off the bench with the Kings, and he was not happy with that. And I think you talk about JJ Redick with the Sixers. I think Buddy Hield would be a perfect fit for him. You give Ben Simmons a shooter. You give when Embiid's in the post, you have a guy to kick out to. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Buddy Hield he's a good NBA player, and I think he'd be not a great, but he'd be even better. But he could be a 20+ point scorer for you.
Definitely. So yeah, I like that move. I didn't think about Buddy Hield.
Yeah.
I was looking at a lot of big names, a lot of big teams, and I just the Buddy Hield
the
names
Kings,
of the world kind of escaped me.
You don't look at the Kings either.
Yeah, exactly. So those names kind of escaped me. At my number 4 slot, I'm going to touch on the Lakers a little bit. I would like to see them let both Danny Green and Kuz go and bring in another key piece. Those guys really brought us down in the playoffs. And like I said, they should add Danny Green into that Kuz petition where they don't get their rings because they didn't produce nearly the amount of the role that we were expecting them to play, even close to it, especially come playoff time. I mean, Kuz was okay towards the latter half of the regular season, but once playoffs hit, he was garbage. Yeah. And then Danny Green was garbage throughout the entirety of the bubble. We can find Danny Green is very, very replaceable, and Kuz is a trade asset. So I mean, I'd like to see them push Danny Green out, trade Kuz away for a better key piece.
For now, my number 3, I'm gonna go back to the draft a little bit. The Knicks are gonna trade up to get LaMelo Ball. I think the Knicks need.
They kind of have to.
They need someone like that to get attention. They need someone like that to take over the franchise. And I think LaMelo Ball would be a great fit for him. Give him the reins, and if he's up for the challenge, he's a lot of potential. So I'm curious to see if he can deliver on that. But that would be nice.
I think they have to, because the Knicks fans are such in high demand, and everyone in that front office is kind of pressed.
Yeah.
They kind of have to bring in a face like that, because nobody's going to sign with them in free agency if they don't have somebody there that's to build a foundation around.
So I would like that. LaMelo Ball to the Knicks.
Yeah, I think all the Knicks fans were kind of speculating LaMelo Ball to the Knicks in the beginning of the season, but they kind of got shafted in the lottery. So
they have 8th pick. They didn't get anyone.
Yeah,
with that.
Yeah, especially in this draft, because this is a
not,
very deep draft that you've seen in recent years,
Not at all.
or a very small sample size given how the college basketball season played out too.
Yep.
At my number 3 spot, this is where the Pacers come into play.
Okay.
Pacers get CP3. I think the Pacers have a lot of young guys and present kind of more of a Thunder-esque team, but with better talent. You have Domantas Sabonis, who was an all-star this year. Miles Turner, who's top 5 big in the league. Victor,
top 5 big in the league.
Top 5 center talent.
Oh, center. Okay.
Yeah, top 5 center.
Okay, I thought you were power forward and center. Okay.
No, I have more common sense than that.
Okay.
I like to think.
Okay.
But yeah. Miles Turner, top 5 center. You have Victor Oladipo at full health after a 8-month kind of layoff, because he came back briefly and then he sat out the bubble.
He should be good.
And then you have TJ Warren, who's young too.
That would be nice. And Chris Paul at the 1.
Yeah, and Chris Paul at the 1. And
Wow.
with Malcolm Brogdon, that would present you with depth. That would present you with veteran leadership, and that would present you really a contender in the East.
I didn't think of that. That would be a great starting lineup. And a great guy coming off the bench in Malcolm Brogdon.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of, with Pacers too, but I'm going to say Victor Oladipo gets traded to the Knicks. So you got LaMelo Ball and Victor Oladipo. I think Oladipo, he's been a little angry too with this Pacers situation. But I mean, that would change if Chris Paul actually came. I'd be more in favor of the Chris Paul going to the Pacers for that team. But in terms of what I have, Victor Oladipo for the Knicks, I think if they don't get LaMelo Ball, they're still looking for that kind of star caliber player. And Oladipo has been before his injury, he was a star. He was a star for the Pacers. He was an all-star back-to-back years, and I think that would be a good fit for him and a good fit for the Knicks, for the guy to build around.
Yeah, I would hate to see that, especially since like the Pacers could play such a big role in this year's offseason, and Victor Oladipo is going to be healthy. So I would hate to see them get rid of him now. Although I've heard rumors that he wasn't happy there, so I wouldn't be surprised if he got moved, but I'd hate to see it. At my number 2 spot, speaking of people that are going to be, or that should be demanding trades, Devin Booker demands one. I think Devin Booker should get out of Phoenix as soon as he can. They're not built to win for the future. He's a player that's built for prime time, built for a championship contender. I'd like to see, I don't really have a lot of prospective teams that he can contend with right away. Off the top of my head, I would say if the Thunder keep CP3 and get rid of like some of the young guys that he had, the Shai Gilgeous Alexander and stuff like that, I would like to see that. Yeah. Or even I would like to see him on the Rockets. Those are 2 teams that would kind of
with Westbrook and Harden.
Yeah, I think you would put him at the 3 because they stress shooting, and Devin Booker's a shooter and an ISO guy, and
that's 3 dominant ball guys though. Yeah.
That hasn't really stopped him in the past for trying to pursue something like that. So
I don't think I'm going to bring this up because I'm a big Mavericks guy, but him with Luka, that'd be a nice little setup right there.
Yeah, that too.
And then number 1, Giannis signs a supermax this offseason, and he's in stone for the Bucks for the remaining future. I know he's a free agent next year, but the Bucks can offer him the supermax right now. And as a fan perspective, I would love for him to accept it and not go and build a super team, especially now with the Warriors. But I want him to sign that supermax and stay with the Bucks because I think he can still. That's one of his best chances to win. And they just got to get that one more piece. And like you said, if they get Chris Paul or something like that. But I want Giannis to sign the supermax this offseason.
Yeah. The one thing with that, there's kind of 2 sides to that because if Giannis resigns with the Bucks, the NBA is still kind of the remaining balanced competition heavy league.
Yeah.
as far as Giannis is concerned, though, Giannis is kind of sick of having the MVPs and no rings, and you've heard him say that he's been actively pushing that in the media. So I think that kind of presents the option of he's on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Heat and the Mavericks said that they were going to push that right away, and that presents them with championship contenders right away. So from a NBA fan perspective, sure. From a Giannis perspective, like you could kind of go either way with that, but I think he's going to lean more towards the side of win now because I mean, as any competitor would do, I would think.
Well, actually, I could argue that though, because if you're a competitor, like a Kobe mentality, you want to win where you were, or like a Damian Lillard, he doesn't want to leave because he wants to win where he was drafted.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That's just the devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. So my number one slot here, it would be a blockbuster. I got Bradley Beal in exchange for Paul George. I think everyone in that Clippers locker room is pissed off with Paul George. I think they're just so angry with him and how he performed in the playoffs and how he kind of handled himself in the media, saying like, oh, I'm allowed to have a bad game, this and that. Like I think that everyone in that Clippers locker room was kind of removed from Paul George. I think Bradley Beal presents the same sort of player that he just comes off a year where he's averaging 30 points a game. A good complementary piece to the Kawhi where he's not as ball dominant but just as capable of a scorer.
Just getting the ball and go getting a bucket.
Yeah, and I think just Paul George needs to change scenery at this point. So I think that option would present them with just what they needed, just what they're looking for. And then it would be interesting to see how Paul George matches up with John Wall. Yeah. If that were to happen.
I think that could be good.
That could be
good. Who knows what John Wall's going to be like, though.
Yeah, exactly.
But that would be monumental.
Yeah, definitely. I would. That's the one that I'm really wanting to happen because I think Paul George needs to get out of LA.
I think Bradley Beal wants to get out of Washington, too.
Yep.
Bradley Beal for Paul George. It's a good way to end it right there.
Definitely.
So that does it for our third edition of the Irishman Take podcast.
Yeah, this I think was our best episode.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff circulating in the media, a couple breaking news.
Yeah, we had breaking news of Carlos Correa walk-off home run. That was good.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.